All right, welcome to Demand. Marginal utility definitions, all that good stuff, mostly definitions. Take a look in your textbook. Where in your textbook, chapter 3, do you find the definition of demand? Pause the tape and find it. Great, you found it. If you look at the definition, there are 6 major parts. The first part, you'll notice, is quantities. It's plural. Demand is not one quantity, it's multiple quantities, lots and lots of different quantities. Demand is a whole bunch of different cues. Another part of the definition, particular good or service, like gasoline, rubber bands, basketballs, tires, asphalt, haircuts, which a lot of you probably need a lot now since we can't go out and get them, but more on that later. I'll try not to be opinionated. So 2 parts of the demand are important to notice. Quantities, like gallons, not 1 gallon, not 10 gallons, but gallons, pounds, yards, hours, not 1 hour, not 10 hours, but plural, but of a particular good or service. The other part of the definition, different prices. Notice that these prices, it's not $1, it's not $10, it's not $1.95. It's all possible prices. Just like earlier, it's all possible quantities, it's all possible prices. Demand is all of those things. It's not a particular price, it's not a particular quantity. This is huge. Quantity demanded is a particular quantity at a particular price, but demand itself is not. Demand is multiple prices, multiple quantities. Another part of the definition, if you notice it there in your book, we're looking at a particular time, and there are 2 things that are important: willing and able. To be willing, that's pretty simple. It means you want to. You have the desire to. That's good. But you have to be both at the same time to be a demander. You must also be able. Now, this is pretty simple. What does it take to be able to be a demander? Pause the tape. Think. Good. I'm sure you paused the tape because you already know. And it's not a tape, it's a digital recording. You understand that to be able means you got the money. You got the funds. You have a line of credit. Now, I usually tell a story in my class at this time. I miss you guys. I'll tell you anyway. Outside my garage right now is my Porsche. Vroom, it's all wrapped up like a Christmas present. It's not going anywhere because it's in storage. I've wanted this car forever and ever since I saw this movie, which I don't recommend. It's Tom Cruise. He's a high school senior in a high school in Illinois, Chicago suburb, and he's got a class like you do, junior achievement, only he didn't get shut out in lockdown, and him and his buddies had to develop a good or service, sell it for a profit, and explain it. Well, that's what you guys would be doing too, but our governess has different ideas. Well, anyway, in that movie, there's a Porsche 928, and he puts it in Lake Michigan, and I about fell out of my chair in the theater when I saw it for the first time. Because Porsches are cool, they're neat, but they're freaking expensive. The one in the movie in 1983-84 was like $55,000. And when I was in college, I was not a demander. I was really, really willing, but I was not able. I was in college. Graduated college, moved on down the road to being an officer in the Army in California. And there they had a Porsche dealership. And sure enough, there was a Porsche 928 spinning round and round and round, silver outside, black leather interior. I told my wife, I said, hey, look at that. Let's take a look. She goes, no, we're in California and it's really expensive. I thought since I had a real job and I was in the Army, I was able. But my wife, she said, no, I'm really not. So I was too stupid to know. I was not able. I was still willing. Well, I graduated from the Italian language school in California and went to Italy and realized just north of the Alps, I shall take a moment here. In Italy, I don't know if you realize it or not, it's a nice little country. They had some problems with this virus. But anyway, the point is, I lived here, and they make Porsches here. It's not very far at all. Look how far it is not between these two places. from here to here. Look at that. It's only 1,345,000 feet. Or only 254 miles. In other words, it's like from here to not even Marquette, Michigan. That's how small Europe really is. No disrespect, but Europe is not large. So anyway, I wanted to go up there and get a car because, hey, they're cheaper, right? But my wife reminded me we had lived in California, maxed out our credit cards, we had a little kid, and we were still not able. Bummer. So I learned how to teach economics, got out of the Army, we won the Cold War, came back here, started preach and teach at Hopkins, and I share the story like I am now. I say, wow, man, I really wish I had that car. It would have been so cool. And then after several years, a student came up to me after class with a thumbnail picture, an old school paper catalog, and said, hey, Mr. Wiersma, check it out. That's your car. I said, oh my gosh, only $10,000 in Holland, Michigan. Can I borrow it? And he goes, sure. So I took it home. And I show it to my wife and I say, look, let's go to Holland. I'll go to Russ's. We'll buy pie. Come on, let's take a look at this car. And she goes, now, the kids, we promised him college. I said, oh, man, I paid for my own college. You paid for your own college. Why do we have to pay for theirs? We promised them. I was still not able. It's either me or the car, my wife said. And I said, dang it. I was not a demander. However, after a few more years, same story, same lecture, same everything you're seeing now, only this time a little more updated, a student sent me a link to Craigslist. Same kind of car, and it was on sale in Rockford. And I came home and I said to my wife, hey, baby, take a look at this. What do you think now? And she said, okay. So I went from not being able back in college and early Army career to not being willing, says my wife, for the car. And then finally she said yes, and we had cash in the bank, and I got the car. So in other words, to be a demander, you must be willing and able at the same time. Just because you have money does not mean you're a demander. You might not want it. Or you might really want it, but you don't have money, you're not a demander. So demand has 6 parts to the definition, all at the same time. Okay, I'm trying to make this thing work. I'm remoting my computer at school here at home. Like that packet says, how to graph demand. Well, it's basically like this. You got yourself a big Q or a big P, a big L. That's it, big L. That's it, big L. Write a title up here. So you put your title in. Put a big P here for price and a big Q here for quantity. And I told you demand is all these prices and all these quantities at once. And we'll find out it's a negative relationship. I'm going to put a D here to represent this is my first demand curve. I'm going to pick an arbitrary price, shoot over, and ricochet down. And that's going to be my QD1. Now, I'll explain why it's downsloped in a different video called Marginal Utility. And also Khan Academy has one, but that guy, I don't know, he's really boring to me. But this is it. This is how you graph the demand curve. We're going to start it this way and play with it from here on out. So this is the 6 parts of the definition of demand and how to graph a demand curve. P, Q, downslope, put a D1. Pick a P in the middle somewhere because we might go up or down or play with it. Shoot over, ricochet, drop down, put a QD down there with a 1 and a 1 and a 1 because this is where we start. Bye.